Good evening, East Brunswick community. I'm Victor Valesky, Superintendent of Schools, and thank you for joining us tonight at our Town Hall Forum to explain our restart and recovery plan to reopen schools. We are going to stick to our 6 to 8 p.m. We are going to stick to our 6 to 8 p.m. I'm sorry, we're getting feedback here. We're going to stick to our 6 to 8 p.m. time frame. We know you have a lot of questions. We'll be taking that through the moderator, and any questions that we're unable to answer during the time frame tonight, we will put on our frequently asked questions. We will put the questions up with the answers. I wanted to introduce some panelists that are joining me tonight. To my far right, Dr. Lou Figueroa, who's the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, Mr. Nick Latronica, who is our Chief Information Officer, Mr. Bernardo Giuliano is the Business Administrator and the Board Secretary, and Dr. Joyce Boley, who is Assistant Superintendent for Academics. We began the process right after we closed school in March to really look at the spaces we use for teaching, learning, gathering, and transporting. We looked at the placement and organization of students and staff in those spaces. We looked at the integration of medical, social, and emotional sports with academics. We looked at communication that is important to our community and to the township. We looked very hard at environmental safety. And of course, we always maintain physical security. Our objective was to exceed the minimum standards identified in the Department of Education roadback guidance, and we feel like we have done that because the plan we submitted to the state has been approved to offer both a hybrid in-person option and a full remote option at the parent's choice. We wanted to make the plan flexible and adaptable because we know we're going to have to make changes as we begin the school year. And we already know that we've made adjustments within the last 3 or 4 days since Thursday's board meeting. So to highlight some of the things for the community that you may have had questions about last Thursday that we brought resolution to, I'm going to start with Mr. Giuliano to update the community on some changes in our transportation protocols.
Good evening. We will be revising the school bus protocols to reflect 2 important updates. First, we have identified an adjustable anti-fog face covering that can be worn without interfering with driving. School bus drivers will be required to wear these face coverings at all times when students are present on the bus. Second, the driver's area will be equipped with a soft shield protector recently approved by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration to provide a separation between the school bus driver and students. Since the NHTSA has only just approved the use of these barriers, they will not be available on the first day of school. However, they will be installed as soon as they become available in September.
Thank you. Mr. Electronica, you have some updates on technology.
Yes, I do, Dr. Valesky. So some of the most frequently asked questions that we've been getting so far have to do with the rollout of devices. I'm happy to say that we are providing devices to all district students that are in need. We have already started the process of contacting families in Hammersholt Middle School so that they can make appointments to pick up devices for their students. And starting tomorrow, we will continue that process, contacting the elementary school students. For students that already have devices that are acceptable, you'll just simply retain those devices. For students that need an upgrade, so students that are going into high school or Churchill that need laptops, we'll contact you once those devices are ready for pickup. And of course, we'll have devices, like I said, available for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. The other thing that I wanted to address are concerns about us having enough bandwidth. With the hybrid learning environment, we understand the need to increase our network capabilities. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of experts in my network team, and we also have advanced network monitoring capabilities. So we can historically see what we've used both internally and going out to the network from any day last year. my team's also done extensive research to see what maximum bandwidth would be needed for us to have every teacher in every classroom doing their classes synchronously to both homes and students in the class. We're in the process of upgrading our bandwidth. We're tripling it from 3 gigabytes to 9 gigabytes a second. And in addition to that, our network management and our wireless management is really granular. So if we need to disable certain services, certain websites, things that are not crucial to the instructional process, we're able to do that basically at a moment's notice. So we're very confident that our systems will be up to the challenge for next year.
Thank you, Mr. LaTronica. And we understand that, so I'm going to have Mr. Giuliano repeat what he said. It appeared we had a communication problem with the mic. So, Mr. Giuliano.
Yes. Hopefully the microphone is working well now. So just to go over my previous statement, there are revisions to the school bus protocols. There are two important updates. The first is that we have identified an adjustable anti-fog face covering that can be worn without interfering with driving. School bus drivers will be required to wear these face coverings at all times when students are present on the bus. Second, the driver's area will be equipped with a soft shield protector recently approved by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration to provide a separation between the school bus driver and students. Since the NHTSA has only just approved the use of these barriers, they will not be available on the first day of school. However, they will be installed as soon as they become available in September.
Thank you, Mr. Giuliano. Now we're going to play a very short video that Dr. Boley has produced that gives parents a view into what a day will look like for your students. Dr. Boley?
Thank you, Dr. Valesky. It's my pleasure to share this video with the community. As we all navigate these unusual times and get closer to the opening of school, this video will provide an overall plan for instruction, understanding that the unique nuances of each grade level and subject area may alter slightly. Your building principal will be communicating with you regarding specific school-based details for opening day. Please realize that we will balance providing direction to staff with allowing teachers to use their professional discretion regarding content delivery and timing of lessons. All students will participate in 4 hours of instruction in the morning. Sample schedules for both elementary and secondary schools can be found on the district website. In order to participate in virtual instruction, parents will be asked to sign a permission slip allowing their child to participate in the digital sessions. Along with this, students and parents will need to review and agree to the technology acceptable use policy. At the onset of each period, the whole class should begin together with their teacher, both in-person students and remote students. Teachers will take attendance and ensure all students are ready to learn. Direct instruction of the day's content will follow at the time during the period that the teacher deems appropriate. This could happen concurrently for all students in the class, regardless of location, or a teacher may support the in-person students, then work with the remote students while the students in class are completing an independent assignment, or vice versa. Teachers may keep the video sessions open while interacting with students in the classroom. However, the audio should be muted while individualized feedback is being offered. Keeping the video session open will allow remote students to raise their hands or ask questions in the chat while completing their independent work. Teachers will be sensitive to technology issues and will make accommodations on a case-by-case basis. While students are in person, teachers will provide differentiated instruction and prioritize hands-on learning experiences. After the first weeks of school, afternoon sessions with students will begin. Students will log in during their scheduled times to have additional instructional periods with teachers. Teachers at the secondary schools will meet with students in each period class at a scheduled time. This time may be used for whole class discussions, assessment, or small group work, for example. These sessions will be required for students and will be used as a class participation grade. At the elementary level, part of the afternoon sessions will be dedicated to asynchronous special area lessons and part for remediation and enrichment activities. Elementary principals will also schedule support for basic skills and ESL students as appropriate in the afternoon. Teachers will do all they can to accommodate individual circumstances while still ensuring they are helping students learn. Keeping in mind screen time recommendations from the American Pediatric Association, students will not be required to be on the computer all day. While not logged in with their teacher live, students will be expected to complete independent assignments. Teachers will ensure that what is planned for all students is both developmentally appropriate and able to be completed independently. Older students should be able to engage in the day primarily independently with just some reminders from the adult caretaker. However, we do expect that there will be times when our youngest learners may need some parental support. For example, a kindergarten student may not yet read independently and may need help with tricky words, or he or she may play a math game that requires a partner. These activities can be completed at a time outside of the school day if needed. For the 2020-21 school year, we are implementing a system that will allow for a simpler login process for our younger learners in grades 2 and below. This system will allow you to easily log these students into their Chromebook using a QR code from Parent Access. The code can either be printed or downloaded onto a smartphone. Once the code is held up to the Chromebook camera, the student will be logged in. Once logged in, the student will navigate the menu to choose the application they need. Established assessment and grading practices will resume in accordance with board-approved policies. Assessing student mastery of skills and concepts will be done both when students are in school and at home in various ways, such as quizzes, projects, written assignments, presentations, etc. On days when students attend school in person, they will not be taking tests all day. Assessments will be utilized for all students, regardless of which model they have chosen. Opportunities for students to meet with their teacher virtually for small group instruction and independent conferences for feedback will also be scheduled. In elementary schools, students are assigned their own desk for the entirety of the school day. Teachers, rather than students, will switch classes. At the secondary level, students in each period should be assigned a single-use seat. For example, if there are 6 students in period 1 and 6 students in period 2, students will sit in their own designated seat. Teachers may wish to label desks with a period number to ensure that students sit in their assigned sanitized space. Staff and students will maintain a safe distance and wear their masks throughout the on-site instructional day. With certain populations and in some instances, it may not always be possible to maintain social distancing between staff and students. These interactions should be minimized and kept brief. The same holds true for student-to-student interactions. There will be times when student collaboration may require them to speak to one another with less social distancing. However, these interactions should also be brief to the greatest extent possible. If students will be sharing equipment or materials in any classroom at any time, they will be required to wash or sanitize their hands prior to the use of the equipment as well as after. In addition, those items will be sanitized with a cleaner in between use. Please know that administrators are collaborating on a plan to ensure technology and instructional materials are disseminated to students prior to or at the very start of the school year. We will start the school year with 3 full days of professional development, and the professional learning of our staff will remain a high priority throughout the year. Furthermore, there will be no scheduled afternoon student sessions during the first weeks of school. These afternoons will be dedicated to further professional development for our staff. We are sensitive to how challenging these times are for everyone and want to assure you that we are here to support your child. Parents should contact their child's school principal or counselor to discuss individual circumstances. Please share any feedback you may have with your building principal. We thank you for your continued flexibility and support of the East Brunswick Public Schools. Enjoy the remaining days of summer.
We are going to begin to look at some of the questions through Mr. Giuliano, who's going to moderate, and we'll pass off the questions. Obviously, I would appreciate if your question has been asked, if we could spend the time asking questions that haven't already been entertained or asked. If it hasn't been asked to your satisfaction, of course, continue to ask us to clarify. And we will to the extent possible. And some of the questions we may not be able to answer tonight, but we will certainly get back, as I said, on our frequently asked questions. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it's on the homepage of our website, so it's a very good resource beyond tonight for you to reference going forward to the start of school. So, Mr. Giuliano, do you want to?
Yes. So the first question relates to individuals that may contract COVID-19 who are at the school. Will everything go to distance learning model for the marking period, the school year, or will there be a mandatory 14-day quarantine? What will be the procedure to be followed?
The procedure is going to depend on where the positive COVID case is. Obviously, we'll have different situations. We'll have individuals who will suspect they may have been exposed to a positive case. They may be self-quarantining, but not having the results of a COVID test. If someone is out and ill, we're going to require them to see a physician and have a physician's note to return to school. If the doctor orders a COVID test and the COVID test is negative, those individuals, students or staff, would be permitted to return. If the test is positive, then we will obviously identify close contacts with that individual. Close contact by the Department of Health guidelines is a person within 6 feet for 10 minutes or more. So typically in a classroom, if a teacher or another student within that grouping, that cohort, tested positive, the entire cohort would quarantine from that class, just that class, because we expect the students will not be moving in elementary school from class to class. The teachers will be moving to the students. In other schools where students may move around, we would involve the Department of Health, and we would involve them in investigations to determine the extent of quarantining and contact tracing and notification.
Our next question, what is the possibility to start school a week earlier to clear any glitches or problems that may occur?
We are mandated by state law to have 180 instructional days in our calendar. The board approved this calendar prior to the impact of COVID and the pandemic. We believe we have vetted our plan. We still have, obviously, bringing our teachers back will be part of the process. But I think it's prudent for us to stay with the calendar that was board approved prior to the pandemic, except for one modification, as Dr. Boley referenced. We are adding one additional professional day at the beginning of the school year to give our staff additional time to become acclimated with the type of learning we're going to or type of learning and teaching we're going to be delivering this school year.
How will instruction continue if a teacher is quarantined?
If a teacher is quarantined, we're going to be utilizing other resources, and we will be using the remote model. We will shift if we have to adapt to the conditions that we can expect if we have a positive case.
And along the same lines, if a teacher is quarantined due to close contact tracing, does that mean that their kids who also attend East Brunswick schools need to be quarantined?
If they were, and most likely they would. If they were in contact with their teacher and a teacher was a positive COVID case, those students would most likely be quarantined.
What percentage of high school, junior high, middle school, and elementary students opted for all virtual?
All virtual across the board, across the district, is about 52%, and the in-person hybrid about 48%.
Moving along the chat, I'm looking for the next question. Again, another question with regard to quarantining. Do staff and children need to be quarantined if there is a case from a cohort with COVID-like symptoms until the results come out?
Not necessarily. That would depend on guidance from the Department of Health. The cases will be very, very individualized. We have general guidance. Obviously, as I said, close contact is within 6 feet for 10 minutes or longer. That's considered a close contact. We are requiring that all of our students, all of our staff wear masks 100% of the time. Not just our requirement, it is a mandate by Governor Murphy. Masks are the best protection for every single individual. We have hand washing stations and sanitization stations scattered throughout all of our school facilities. Hand sanitizer will be in every single classroom. We use an Orbeo disinfectant spray to clean off desk and hard surfaces. That's available in the classroom. So in addition to very, very thorough cleaning throughout the day, there are opportunities for spot cleaning and for individual hand sanitization, encouraging appropriate time for hand washing during bathroom use, staggering the use of bathroom facilities so students are not commingled together. So those are all things that we are taking very seriously to protect all of your children and to protect all of our staff.
The next question relates to COVID testing, and generally, are we mandating that anyone working for the district or attending the district will be required to be tested?
No, we're not requiring it, and as of the guidelines issued by the CDC and Department of Health, it is not recommended.
With regard to student materials, when will student books be distributed?
Individual building principals are scheduling times and will be communicating with their families about the distribution of materials as we get ready to approach the start of the school year.
In testing, not COVID, but instructional, how will tests be administered?
Dr. Boley, would you mind?
Certainly. Students will be assessed both formatively and summatively, as they've always been, through tests, quizzes, written assignments, projects, discussions. Teachers will use various means to assess student content knowledge, and we are working with them to provide professional development to enhance their ability to assess. They're all remote students.
And Dr. Boley, just for clarification, assessments primarily will be, we don't plan to use hybrid in-person time for assessment, correct?
That's correct. When students are in class with their teachers, they will not be taking tests all day.
Thank you.
Next, relating to the decision to offer a remote and hybrid option, is there a reason that we did not opt for all remote for the first quarter?
We did not offer only remote. We wanted to give parents a choice because our plan was always built about a safe return to school. I am big in safety, and I would not be promoting opening our schools in any structured manner if I personally didn't feel it was safe. I can affirm to the community that I feel safe enough to walk to any facility and commingle with the population of that school throughout the day, no matter what the population of students, because our plan is comprehensive, and if everyone follows the plan, it ensures our individual safety and our school community safety.
Next, regarding independent work by students, how will students ask questions if they are not live streaming?
Dr. Boley?
Students will be connected virtually with their classroom teacher and be able to raise their hand or submit questions in the chat. If there's a reason why the student and the teacher would be disconnected from the session, there will be additional opportunities for students to connect with their teacher in the afternoons.
With regard to teachers who are wearing a mask and students who are remote from the classroom, how will those students hear the teachers during instruction?
We are in the process of, ensuring that amplification is going to be appropriate, so students will be able to understand their teachers, even with a mask.
In the technology area, can a student use their own device if they have one?
They can use their own device. It needs to be compatible with the systems that we have. Mr. Electronica, what types of features does a parent device need to have?
Yeah, so basically a student can use their own device. They could use a Chromebook, a Windows device. It needs to be able to connect to a 5 gigahertz wireless network. And it needs to be able to run a modern web browser such as Microsoft Edge, Safari, or Chrome. It's also an advantage if it can run the Microsoft apps such as Teams, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
What guidelines are in place for teachers to ensure that students who are hybrid have equitable grading with students that are all remote? How will this equity be ensured?
So we will be enforcing our board-approved policy on grading, and students who are all remote and students who are coming into school hybrid will be assessed in equal ways, and the grades therefore will be earned, as they always are, and will be given out proportionally.
Again, with technology, will there be devices for incoming 8th graders at Churchill Junior High School?
Yes, there will be. When we order devices for new students, we always take into consideration new enrollments, but also devices that come dead on arrival or fail. This way we have enough loaner devices and enough devices for new students coming in.
With regard to HVAC systems, what type of filters are being used in each of the schools?
Mr. Giuliano, you're the expert in this part, so.
So we have upgraded all of the filtering in our schools to the maximum MERV, M-E-R-V, filtering that the systems can sustain, and that is MERV 13 and MERV 8. It varies by what the system specifically is, but those are the two MERV filters that actually are installed and will be changed out from time to time.
So one of the other things that we are doing is we're looking at the testing of our environments before we begin school. That information will be shared with the Board of Education. And obviously, once they've had a chance to review it, we'll be sharing with the community to ensure everyone that is safe.
Will students need to use masks in class?
Yes.
Will the network, and I believe this was already addressed by Mr. Latronica, but once again, will the network be able to handle the demands of the students logging on?
Yes. The bandwidth will be increased to such a capacity that we don't anticipate any issues.
Will there be devices for elementary school students as well?
Ultimately, there will be. We are, and I need to be upfront with the community. If you're watching the news, there are sanctions that have been imposed on factories in China. Orders that we had placed early in the summer have been delayed for a couple of weeks. So we've been on it. We were on it early. We expect our devices to be sometime in the mid to later part of September. But we believe we have enough devices that we can probably repurpose, and our expectation is that students will have a device until the new devices come in.
Yeah, so me and my team, my team has been scouring the district for every possible device, carts that have been in use, shared carts in the schools for specific labs. We are taking every single device on hand, and I'm very confident that we will have a device for every student who needs one. If your child does have a device that they want to use at home and you don't need a device right away, that would be great if they could use that device at least for the first couple of weeks of school to make sure that every learner has that device so that they can receive that important home instruction.
With regard to the quality of learning, please elaborate on how you will ensure that that will continue with virtual learning at the high school.
So all of our courses are aligned with New Jersey Student Learning Standards. We're moving to a block schedule format at the high school, which will allow for extended periods, and our board-adopted curriculum will be implemented.
The next couple of comments relate to the device pickup process at Hammersholt, and that they're expressing difficulty with the system asking for staff ID, not student ID.
I apologize, that one was my fault. We basically took a form that we were using to get staff members to be able to upgrade their devices. We're making sure that all staff members have Windows laptops so that they can successfully implement remote learning. And I took that form, reused it for the students, but while I was sitting here, I fixed the form. The form should be good to go. You can fill that out.
One of the things I did want to mention before we continue, for the community, every one of our school facilities, with the exception of the high school, is completely air-conditioned. Parts of our high school are air-conditioned, but parts are not. But we do have a number of spaces within the high school that are. Our Churchill Junior High School is air conditioning project that's been underway for 2 years, or a year and a half, is nearing completion right before the start of school. And in fact, Mr. Giuliano and I walked the building with the principals the other day, and all the units were functioning, all the rooms were cool, and the hallways were cool. It was a very comfortable environment.
And you anticipated a question that was on that topic.
Okay.
So we don't need that question now.
Okay.
Will students be eating lunch in their classrooms or the cafeteria?
Students will not be eating lunch in school. They will pick up a grab-and-go meal option that they will take home and have time to consume before they begin the second part of their day. Or if not home, wherever they're going to go, whether it's an after-school program or any other place that the parents might have scheduled for that child to be. But there will be an adequate time for them to be transported to consume their meal and then to engage with their teacher for the balance of the day. And the reason we're not doing meal service at our schools is because of social distancing regulations. And it's another factor in our safe return to schools. It's another opportunity for us to maintain that distancing and protect all the students.
How will the classroom teacher effectively teach two different cohorts?
The classroom teachers will be receiving extensive and ongoing professional development in concurrent instructional strategies. They will be teaching their lesson live to the students at home and in the classroom, and engaging in conversations, discussions, and small group sessions with the students on the computer, with also the students in the classroom. They'll manage their period, and we'll leave it to their professional discretion as to how they're breaking down that classroom period time.
When will student schedules be published?
Cohorts and school schedules will be available the last full week of August.
With regard to students who are taking the bus home and may not have much time for lunch, how strict is the afternoon virtual attendance for elementary students?
In the afternoons for elementary students, the first session will mostly be asynchronous, will be an opportunity for them to engage in learning in the special areas. The building principals are making those schedules. The second session in the afternoon will be contact time with their classroom teacher, reading specialist, so forth. And certainly, the teachers and principals will work with any individual situations to accommodate.
The next question, again, relates to the instructional area and virtual learning. What does being more structured in virtual learning mean? Is that the remote students will follow the regular daily school schedule?
That's correct. All students will log in, attendance will be taken at the beginning of the period, and then the class period will commence at the teacher's discretion.
Is the district providing staff with masks, gloves, or cleaning supplies?
Yes, all of those. We have ordered personal protective equipment for all staff, and it's been specific for the groupings of staff. So for example, our nurses have one level of PPE. Our special education teachers have another level of PPE. Our school security officers have another level. So it's been individualized by the grouping of people, the grouping of employees, and their job function and their potential for exposure. But we started ordering PPE early. We were ahead of the curve in terms of beginning to get orders in and stockpile. So I feel very confident that we have adequate supplies and adequate supply chains to make sure that all of our staff are safe.
Will students be wearing gloves? Some students are allergic to latex, so if they are required to wear gloves, which would be permitted?
Students will not be required to wear gloves.
Are you considering full virtual learning prior to school starting?
I am still staying with the plan that we sent to the state and that the board approved prior to sending to the state, which is to offer parents a choice. And parents have clearly indicated by their selections that we have approximately half of the community that wants some type of in-person hybrid model, and half of the community wants a all virtual model. We have worked hard to create as safe an environment as we possibly can with all the conditions that we find ourselves in. That being said, I sincerely believe we have a cleaner environment in our schools than most people would encounter in any other public situation that they might be going to in this pandemic.
What will pre-K sessions look like?
Our preschool classes are coming back on a staggered schedule with reduced capacity as well.
How long will virtual learning continue?
Virtual learning is going to continue until we feel it's safe to fully recover our schools. That will depend on the science, as Governor Murphy, as he stated at many of his press conferences. And we right now are following executive order mandates that determine our distancing requirements in schools, and will determine when our capacities can begin to increase. And we're going to do that in a very structured way, because we'll need to communicate that with not only families, but with township officials, with all of our teachers, of course, to be able to develop a very, very structured plan to accept more students into our schools. I look forward to that this school year, but we will take it as when it's safe to do so.
For virtual learners, what kind of supplies will be provided for students for pickup and drop-off? And will they receive new books to read each week as they did while in school?
So the principals are scheduling for material distribution to all remote students, and they will be scheduling ongoing opportunities for parents to pick up those materials and supplies as needed.
Once again, with regard to COVID issues, what happens if a child or teacher tests positive?
If a child or teacher tests positive, within the cohort, within the class that child or teacher is, in an elementary setting, that group would be quarantined. In secondary setting where a child may move to different teachers, then we'll involve the Department of Health to determine contact tracing within our school environment. If somebody tests positive, student or child, people determine, whether it's a student or another adult, people determined to be in close contact with that individual would be quarantined for the mandatory, it's between, right now, 10 and 14 days, is the CDC recommendation.
In the instructional area, there were 8 periods each day, but now there will be 5 to 6 periods each day. How can we ensure all the content will be taught?
Students will be participating in an A-B block schedule. There'll be 4 periods one day, 4 periods the second day, and the periods are significantly extended in time.
What is the plan to review the material from last year, especially from March to June?
Teachers will use their professional discretion to formatively assess students and address learning gaps as needed.
One of the things that we do know, and, we've heard clearly from parents who have been involved with their children since March, all the way through the completion of the school year. We will have to develop opportunities for students to get enrichment in the next coming years. We know that as a fact, based on the situation we find ourselves in. And honestly, I wish the environment was safe for us all to return. I know that's what everybody wants. But we have built this plan, we believe it's safe, but we understand there are gonna be supports that are gonna be needed for students, both on the academic side and on the social emotional side.
Okay. Just scrolling down for another question. Some of these have already been asked and answered. What if a student on a bus is positive?
Again, if a student tests positive, contact tracing will go back to identify where that student has been in contact. If that involves the bus or tracing the student back to the origins of where the student has been, including the household, that's where we'll engage the Department of Health to help us with the contact tracing and notification. The Department of Health will be involved with us in investigations where we have a positive and possible contact tracing.
How was the weekly schedule created? It is difficult for 2 working parents.
We understand the difficulty and have heard clearly from parents about the lack of consistency in the schedule. The schedule was built in the beginning to try to align siblings for childcare. So for families in the same household unit, to make sure that all students attended school on the same day. It was also very clear that we wanted to give opportunities to our elementary students to have as much face-to-face time with their teachers. And so the schedule we created maximized that time for our elementary students. The block scheduling and the 25% rotation in and rotation out means 2 days in, 6 days out for our secondary students. But our plan was built for secondary students on 25% capacity. That's 25% of the enrolled capacity, which means that we will have an opportunity to reintroduce more students to school when it is safe. But we wanted to start with a lower number to make sure that our plan was going to be implemented the way that we had envisioned. And that number for elementary schools is at 50% right now. And that's 50% of the enrolled population. So the numbers we're gonna see are lower than that because families have selected, or half the families have selected to do an all virtual option. So the numbers we expected will be reduced by just a slightly more than half of the number we anticipated.
Other districts in the county have opted for all remote learning. Will the district be considering the same thing?
The only reason I would recommend to the board that we choose an all-remote learning option is if we could not meet any of the health and safety standards identified in the document that I submitted to the state. At this moment, we have either met or exceeded, and I attest that we have probably exceeded all of them in the document. I believe it is as safe as we can possibly make it to return if everyone follows the plan we have established. The implementation will be as important as the plan. I know a number of districts have decided to go all remote in the last couple of days, some even this afternoon, after Governor Murphy announced at his press conference that that would be an option available to school districts. However, some of those plans have not been approved by individual school districts' boards of education, and the state may not have approved all of those plans. You may have heard on social media, you may have seen that districts were planning to do this, but the state was very clear. In fact, a tweet that Governor Murphy sent out today was a reminder to school districts that their plans had to identify a specific health or safety deficit that they could not overcome for the start of school, and you had to identify a date that you would return to in-person instruction. So you will find that many of the districts might be choosing a remote option for 3 weeks, for one marking period, but there is an expectation that in a very finite period of time, districts will return to some type of face-to-face instruction, as is in our hybrid model.
Will the PSAT be conducted online?
Dr. Boyd, do you
That's
know?
yet to be determined at this time.
What is the frequency of cleaning in the building?
It depends on the area. Cleaning will occur throughout the day. So we are combining both hand cleaning with disinfectant, with electrostatic spray, misting in the classrooms and our buses. It's an effective mechanism to kill the virus. And we have the equipment on hand and the personnel to be able to accomplish that. And then each classroom, every desk, every floor surface, every hallway, every touchable space, including for us, the undersides of desks, the undersides of chairs, where we have found in past experience, that's where students touch. So you won't find that in a protocol in many school districts, but you'll find that in our plan.
Some masks have been proven ineffective. What guidance are you providing for masks?
We are recommending a face covering. We are not defining what the mask looks like. There are varying degrees of masks. There are masks like this that are the multi-ply disposable masks that are good for one day. Some of our staff are wearing cloth masks that need to be washed and cleaned on a routine basis. But our mandate is there will be a facial covering, a mask, that will cover both the nose and the mouth throughout the school day.
Will there be enough teachers to staff the schools, or are there many who have already requested to be remote only?
At this moment, we have enough staff to staff our schools.
Will there be an orientation for elementary school, and what will it look like?
Dr. Bowen?
Our elementary principals are planning for kindergarten and new student virtual orientations.
Can a student be exempt from wearing a mask for medical or religious reasons?
For medical reasons. There will not be a religious exemption. And where we don't have compliance with students wearing a mask, obviously we're going to implement this plan with what I call compassion. And this is going to be helping students understand, if they haven't already, and I'm sure many students already have been out and about with their parents and have experienced wearing a mask in a public setting. But for those who haven't had that experience, we will need to begin to orient them into what that's like for their personal safety, for the safety of others. And so there'll be gentle reminders. But if we have a student who simply does not wear a mask, refuses to wear a mask, then those parents will be asked to go to the remote setting.
For students who are attending remotely, can a structure be set up so that students who are remote can be seen by their peers and vice versa?
The teacher will be able to provide those opportunities for student interaction as appropriate, yes.
Why did parents have to decide between hybrid and remote learning prior to this forum?
We needed to get an idea and start building our structure and our cohorts. We apologize. The forum, if we would have done it over again, we are continuing to collect new information and new guidance from the state. Information coming as late as last week, as Mr. Giuliano related to NTSB and enclosures for bus drivers. We have different guidelines that are still in the queue at the state that we have not seen yet. But parents will have an option after the first marking period to change their selection, whether they've chosen the hybrid model or the remote learning model.
Will students have an opportunity for a mask break, especially for those at the high school where air conditioning is not prevalent?
Yes, mask breaks are integrated into the day, and we understand, especially at the high school, the challenges that will be felt by, students and staff wearing a mask in that kind of environment. And I saw somebody in the chat asking me if I'd actually been in that environment with a mask on for that period of time, and the answer is yes.
Will elementary students receive devices for remote learning?
Yes.
For parents and students who are new to the district and decided for remote learning, what type of onboarding will take place? How will you help to navigate the district?
Principals are scheduling new student orientation for their students, incoming new students to their schools virtually.
How will the practical-based subjects be coordinated?
Coordinated, I assume that you mean when the students are in person, they will be performing, creating, conducting.
Can you tell us how clubs and activities will work?
Clubs and activities will be done virtually, similar to what we did last spring.
And we found that our teachers did a great job of delivering those activities in a virtual environment, even through March and June, when we really didn't have any formalized plan before we kicked it off. But they did a terrific job, and they built it from the ground up. So we already have something very, very phenomenal that we can offer our students, even in a virtual environment.
And we did ask our teachers to try to be creative with those environments, and they did a really nice job with that.
Yep.
Will we be doing park testing?
We need to get guidance from the Department of Education regarding standardized testing.
Will remote-only students have an opportunity to meet their classroom teacher in person at the beginning of the school year?
I think that students would have an opportunity, if they're incoming kindergarten students during orientation, or if they're new to the school building during new student orientation. Otherwise, I think the first day of school would be the first opportunity to meet the child's teacher.
So Dr. Bully, remote-only students, so the people that have chosen to not ever come into school, they would have the opportunity to physically meet their teachers.
physically,
Right, I think that's the question.
Yes.
to come into the building to meet
Yeah,
their
to
teacher?
physically meet their teachers.
In person is the
Right.
question.
I don't have that answer at this time.
We will make sure, we want to clarify what's going on around the building, so that's a question we will put up on the FAQs.
How will labs be conducted?
Students who are coming into school will conduct their labs on the days that they're in the building, and students who are all remote, we have purchased several simulation products that the students will be doing virtual labs.
Will a recording of this presentation be available for those who couldn't make it?
I believe this is being recorded, so yes, I believe this will be available for the public.
How will assessments be conducted for remote students?
Teachers will formatively and summatively assess their students, as they always have. Our standard board-approved grading and assessment policies will be enforced. Teachers can assess students who are all remote through online tests or quizzes, writing assignments, performances, group projects, so forth.
Will daily temperature checks be required of students and staff?
Yes, every day upon entry to school, temperature checks will be taken, but with both groups. And by the way, that is a protocol we have instituted even here at the administrative building. We came in on July 1st and in our full-time capacity. Before that, we were staggered, but we all come into the building, we answer 4 questions, and we get our temperature taken before we're allowed egress into the building. That includes me.
For remote learning children, will the camera only be on the teacher? In terms of student participation, will in-class students be able to interact with remote students?
The teacher will have the camera either on her or she'll be sharing her screen, and at the teacher's discretion and as appropriate, she can set up opportunities for the students who are live in the classroom to interact with the students who are at home. Yes.
For incoming 5th graders who missed the puberty health sessions with the nurse in 4th grade, will the school nurse be conducting these sessions with those students this year?
Yes, that will be scheduled.
Will Friday afternoons be reserved for teacher training?
There will be extended and ongoing professional development support for all of our staff, and the building principals are creating the teacher schedules at this time and will be securing ample time in afternoons for this professional learning to occur.
This next question was also asked previously, but will teachers be given microphones, headphones, so remote students can hear them through a mask?
We are working on amplification for the teachers so that the audio would be understandable with a mask on.
Victor?
Sure.
So, yes, we actually placed an order today, so we will have enough headset microphones for every teacher. It'll cover one ear and have a noise-canceling microphone, so the remote lessons will be heard very clearly.
Thank you.
What was done to improve the HVAC systems?
Mr. Giuliano, you probably,
So there are a variety of things that the district has been doing, even prior to the COVID issues. We have increased the MERV filters to the highest ratings that the individual units can sustain, and those are at MERV 13 and MERV 8, depending upon the unit. Additionally, the district has been in the process of an energy savings improvement program, which involves the integration of a new building management system, which is essentially the brains of the HVAC system. and monitoring and controlling the mixture of outdoor air with the conditioned air within the facilities, and as well as monitoring CO2 levels. So it's quite a complex system. One of the integral aspects of it is the introduction of an appropriate level of outdoor air into the facility.
Obviously, there are a number of concerns about ventilation systems, and we are using outside professional resources to ensure that our systems operate at their optimum efficiency. In fact, some of our systems are relatively new, as our Churchill Junior High, as well as Warrensdorfer and Frost Elementary School are some of our newest schools to be air-conditioned. But also taking guidance from governmental organizations like EPA, who in fact have been very clear that room ventilation is one part of a comprehensive plan to ensure a safe environment in a school facility, combined with distancing, cleaning, and just regular routine hand washing of occupants. So it is one component of many pieces that we have addressed in our recovery plan to ensure the safety of our students and staff. And all of our systems are operational, and at this point, any building that is air-conditioned is operating at the efficiency that we expected it to operate based on its design platform.
What will the online day for a virtual kindergartner look like?
The student will log in the morning with their classroom teacher and, as appropriate, stay logged in throughout the day, and they will follow the guidance of their teacher. We do anticipate that they may and will need support from their caretaker to engage throughout the day. But certainly, we do not want our youngest learners on the screen all day long. However, the teachers will be providing prompts for the students to stay engaged as appropriate throughout the school day.
For students who will be enrolled in the after-school care program, what will they be doing and where from the time of dismissal to the scheduled afternoon virtual session?
Our community programs folks have set up activities for the students in social distance setting. They'll have an opportunity to engage in any work they need to do. We're essentially trying to recreate the same environment they would have had pre-pandemic, but in a socially distanced, safe environment.
With regard to the isolation rooms, what will you do when multiple students display symptoms? Students
who are symptomatic will be placed in the isolation room and would be monitored, but we've asked parents or guardians to identify a contact who is able to pick up the child within 30 minutes or less.
My child now has her own laptop. She has a Chromebook at home from last year. How can I return it?
They can bring it right to the administrative office, and we'll be happy to take it back. Mr. Latronica, are you planning to set up any other satellite locations where, if parents would like to return devices, that we could possibly set up a date, like maybe a singular date for parents to return devices that they may not need?
Yeah, so we're actually sending communications out to every family, not just the ones, because some families already have devices. So when you get the email, you can just make an appointment online and return the device at that time.
Thank you.
What makes East Brunswick different than every other town that is going fully remote?
I can't speak for every other district. I can speak for East Brunswick. I know that we engaged in a plan and preparation for a plan immediately upon our departure in March. We left on March 18th, and we began the next day talking about what our recovery would look like even before the state released guidelines. Our plan was always built around returning to school in whatever capacity was allowed by the state. So I don't know what conditions the other districts are experiencing, but I'm confident that we are prepared to return safely in a limited fashion.
Will the students be required to keep their video and audio on during instructional time?
I'm sure the teachers will encourage the students to keep their video on. It will not be mandated. Teachers will be teaching students how to change their backgrounds. And, they will engage students with question and answering in class discussions.
When students are in person, are they bringing their own device from home, or will they be provided with one to use in school?
Our goal is to make sure that we have a district-provided device for every student by late September, when we complete the delivery of our orders that were formally embargoed in China. So that is our intention, but in the meantime, if a family would like their child to use their own personal device, as long as it meets the platform requirements that we have, then that would be permitted until we get our devices. We're encouraging parents to utilize the devices that we give to our students. And one of the reasons for that is we will have consistent tech support and break fix capability here at the district should a device fail or be broken, so a student has opportunities for learning regardless at any time.
Dr. Valesky, just to clarify on that point as well, I'm just rereading the question, that students will be assigned a device.
Correct.
So that parents who opt to utilize their own home device can reject receiving a district-owned device.
They
But
may.
but the students who are assigned a district device will be taking that back and forth from home to school.
Correct. And this is not, if you had opted that your child wants to use your device and you said you don't want the district's device and something changed later, that is a phone call to us in the IT department, and we will make sure that you get the district-issued device.
Could I just add on that real
Sure.
quick? And as far as support for devices, we did it at the end of last year, and we will continue to do it this upcoming school year. If parents have problems with their district-issued devices, we have an email address, parentsupport@epnet.org, that you can send, put your request in. If it's your personal device and you're having problems with student logins or problems with the district technology, you can send us a note, and my staff is very responsive in getting back to you.
Mr. Latronica, do we have that email address on our website?
We do have that email address on our website. Under the department's technology and technology resources, it's there. But also, when you go to the different school websites, right now, it's under high school parents, technology resources. You can find that information. And when school starts again, it will be right on our homepage.
And one of the things, too, I want to say to the community, we worked hard about communication and getting communication out to you. Our messaging, as you know from me, you hear from me often, and you've heard from me often during the pandemic and as we started our recovery. Our website has been redesigned, if you haven't seen it. And the purpose is to make it easier for parents to navigate to information that they need that's critical to them. So what we'll do is, if we get parent feedback about where certain things need to be placed that makes it easier for access, let us know, because we want to respond to your concerns. And the last thing we want to have you do is, navigating our website to find something that we possibly could put up at least during certain times that would make it easily accessible for our school community. And I know a lot of us access websites and, through our personal phones. And so the way it looks on your phone will be a little different. So making it easy to access from that, the device you always carry with you, is important too.
And can I just clarify, we are not asking our youngest learners to carry their device back and forth. K-2 would not need to bring their device to school. unless they're going to the aftercare program.
That's a good point, Dr. Boyd, thank you.
This next one is not a question, but more of a comment or suggestion, and that is to provide parents a, quote, test your computer day before school begins in September.
Mr. Latronica, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, we've actually been doing a lot of simulations here, but we do recommend that as you get your devices, you check them out. And as I mentioned, we do offer full tech support for everyone.
Would it be possible for us to do something to create something that parents could log in and try to access, and then, check to make sure that everything is functioning the way they believe it is? Could we do that?
Yeah, the best thing is for your students to log into their email account. If they go to outlook.office.com and use their district email account, you know that is the same account that's used for virtually every district system that we have. We will be putting the QR codes on the parent portal. So as parents for the kindergartners through second grade get their devices, as soon as you do that, I would recommend that you make sure that you can log in. And we keep access to our systems open all year round. So students have access to their Google Drive, their OneDrive, their Canvas, and all of that. So you can check access at any time. You don't have to wait until the day before, the week before school starts.
Right. And one thing I want to reinforce, we have staff here that can help you. So do not hesitate to call us if you have a problem so we can help you resolve it. And if we can't do it here in the administrative building, we will get you to the source at the school to get it resolved quickly.
How long are K through second grade students expected to be online at any one point during the day?
Students will connect with their teacher in the morning, and they have an option to stay connected throughout the day if they would like to, and ask questions of their teacher. Certainly, we will leave it to the teacher's discretion as to how much time they need to stay logged in based on the content and based on the activity that they're teaching.
How will school sports work when students are remote learning?
Students right now, according to NJSIAA, students and Governor Murphy, students will still have the opportunity to participate in sports, practices in sports, even if they're in a remote environment. Parents will be responsible for transporting their students to practice.
If I may just add to that, Dr. Valesky, we will continue trying to keep students in pods when we're practicing, which is an important piece that we've done during our summer work as well, just to help us with contact tracing and minimizing any type of transmission of anything.
Dr. Figueroa, could you describe for the community just the size of the pods and how the coaches interact with the pods?
Sure. We try to keep our pods to 10 or under. Coaches have to have masks on the whole time. The students that are in each pod have to have masks on the whole time. We try not to put students together in tight groupings, even within the pod. We try to keep them socially distant. There are times when the students will be going to pick up their water bottles. We ask that they try to socially distance themselves before pulling down masks while they're drinking. If in fact they're doing an activity that might have to do with running and excessive workout type of options, then we allow them to remove the mask during that time, again, socially distanced, and then they put it on again once the team is in a closer proximity to each other. Coaches are always masked throughout the whole time.
Thank you.
This is regarding board meetings. Why have board meetings been remote if it is safe to gather?
The primary reason, based on the board's attorney's guidance, is that for the good of the cause, we cannot limit the number of people who attend a public meeting. If we were to have a public meeting, and Mr. Giuliano, your board secretary, so weigh in here if I say something that is not completely accurate, but for good of the cause, we would not have the capacity, or we could not turn people away for good of the cause, and to maintain social distancing requirements. As you can see from what we're doing here, we're not masked at the dais during this event tonight. We were before we went on camera, but we're maintaining a 6 foot of distancing and doing this only unmasked for this video and for this YouTube presentation. But we wouldn't be able to maintain social distancing. Now, that's not to mean that the board wouldn't consider that at some point in the future, but
So based on the legal guidance that we have received, we would only be able to consider that once it's safe to have essentially unlimited participation live by the public. We are not able to turn away individuals based on capacity. Public meetings are open to everyone from the public. And so the only way to assure that we are in compliance with what the law requires and to provide open participation for all members of the public, the only safe way to do that is through a virtual meeting at this time.
And that's, obviously, we all would like to return to a face-to-face setting, and we miss the opportunity to engage with our public and the constituents and the parents and the families and the students who presented a variety of board meetings. So we missed that opportunity, but we're going to follow, and the board will follow legal guidance on this until it is deemed safe to change.
How will teachers ensure and assess student participation for those doing virtual learning?
Students will begin the period logging in with the classroom teacher, and the teacher will continue to engage students throughout the lesson and through discussion protocols, and continue to connect with students in small groups and one-on-one.
Will the cameras in class be turned off after the 10 to 20-minute mini lesson for each subject?
We will leave the professional discretion to the teacher. Sometimes the teacher may leave the laptop connected with the students at home. The students at home may wish to be connected with the teachers, providing an opportunity for them to ask questions and get additional guidance. But again, the camera will be, the camera of the computer will be on the teacher or sharing her screen.
Please clarify the online day. How much face-to-face contact, and will there be a dedicated teacher?
There will be a dedicated teacher, and there's not a one-size-fits-all. It will depend on the grade level and the content area and the lesson being instructed as to what percentage of the class period the student would be logged in. Again, the student would have the opportunity to stay connected if he or she selects to do so. However, if there is some sort of activity that they're doing independently and they can disconnect, then that would be at the teacher's discretion.
What kind of childcare options will be available for working parents?
The district will not be providing daycare at this time. We are looking at options that we have not yet presented to the board because we understand the burden that has been placed on working families. So we are still investigating options that the board has not considered yet.
How are speech and occupational therapy being provided for our children?
For the students that are here in the district that are utilizing the hybrid model, they will have the same resources as normal. We will have all the necessary PPEs in place for that. If they are at home, we will also continue to work with them remotely and make sure that all of the resources we have will be utilized to help them from home.
I think it's also important to note that for students who need higher levels of services, those students will be offered the opportunity to be in school more frequently during the week. in fact, every day of the week, right?
Right. Students that may need more resources based on their IEP will be invited to be in school more frequently. For those students, it would be 5 days a week.
Thank you.
That was a great segue because the next question was right on that
Oh,
point.
really?
So that was perfect. How are social skills groups being run?
Social skills groups for students that are in the school will be handled similar to a classroom when possible. Obviously, the time that the students are in school, we're trying to take care of their learning needs. There will also be remote opportunities for us to have groups, but our student assistance specialists and our supervisors, our school guidance counselors are prepared and ready to handle all the necessary, the needs that we feel we will encounter as we open up.
How will staff to student ratio be managed for before and after care?
We are following the guidelines established by the state, and we'll be modifying those as guidelines change throughout, as I anticipate they'll change throughout the year.
Will the district offer a backup plan for instances when a home internet or Wi-Fi is down? Such backup plan being perhaps access to a school Wi-Fi from the parking lot or the library parking lot.
Yes, we'll have a backup plan. There are a variety of places in the township that we have found that may not have as robust Wi-Fi connection as we do here at the school districts. But should a condition like that exist, we will have communication that will go out immediately to parents on what the contingency will be for that duration of whatever it is, an outage or a failure of equipment, something like that.
So are they indicating an outage in their own home?
Yes,
Okay, their own home,
their own home.
like a power outage.
Yes. Well, it could be a power outage or it could be, there are times when just the internet goes down in a particular area.
Dr. Bully, that would be a communication directly with the teacher, correct, and the principal?
Yes.
If a family had that situation. And obviously, as we have had power outages in the township that affect grids of the community, if it should affect a larger population than just one family, then that would be a bigger issue. But we have emergency contingencies that we've already built into our plan that will be executed if we have a situation like that.
Will individual textbooks be distributed to students opting for the fully virtual option?
Yes, principals are scheduling material pickup for parents before the school starts or at the very beginning of the school year and ongoing as needed.
For virtual high school students, will the lunch period vary depending on the schedule of each student? Or is the lunch period to be the same across all hybrid and virtual school students?
There's no lunch period at the high school.
Right, but the schedule, the high school schedule is built into 4 60-minute blocks, correct?
63-minute
63
periods,
minute
5
block.
minutes passing, correct.
So they will be consistent for every student during their day, whether they're virtual or the in-hybrid model.
Right. And I specifically asked that question because I think it bears mentioning again that lunch will not be served in school, will not be eaten in school.
No.
Students will receive their lunch and be able to take that home, but in-school consumption will not take place.
So the lunches that will be provided will also not just be for that day. So if a student is attending school for 2 consecutive days, they'll have the opportunity to pick up meals for days they are not in school if they're entitled to that lunch or to purchase lunch. Correct, Mr. Giuliano?
I'm sorry, I
To
missed part of
purchase,
it.
they could purchase lunch, or they could, if they're eligible for the lunch, they would get their lunch for
Yes.
multiple days. And the lunches have been created to have components that can be heated at home. So there's a little more variety for the students to meet their nutritional needs.
Is the district considering norm reference benchmark assessments?
The district will be administering our benchmark assessments as we have been. Certainly, we will need to modify administration for our remote students, but we certainly will be using our formative and summative assessments to understand where students are in their learning progressions and provide remediation as necessary.
Dr. Boley, do you expect that we'll get guidance from the state about the NJSLA in the near future?
It's hard to say at this time, but that would be great.
Okay.
Dr. Valesky, we have one individual who is asking a question that's not related to opening, but perhaps may need to receive a response. And they're asking about your presentation at the governor's news conference. And how is it that we're essentially the only ones that are not going fully remote? And if there's pressure on the district to not go fully remote?
No, there's absolutely no pressure. We submitted our plan to the state for approval. The process was that we had to have a plan that was approved by our Board of Education and through the Education Commissioner, the Executive County Superintendent, whose office for Middlesex County happens to be right here in East Brunswick. So we submitted our plan after board approval, and then we're notified of our plan's approval by the Executive County Superintendent. And then I was invited to attend the press conference based on the comprehensive nature of our plan. It represented one of many plans that districts had created throughout the state that had both a virtual component and a hybrid component, but had met all the requirements of the state guidelines for safe reopening. And so there's absolutely no pressure and no contingency upon my appearance that we have to open under any condition. That is not the case whatsoever.
When will deep cleaning occur, given that there are no days off in between sessions and teachers and staff are in the buildings for full days?
And, and Mr. Giuliano, you can weigh in here too, but deep cleaning is a word that's used a lot. And, but we have the technology to clean rooms in fractions of time that it would have taken previously without the right equipment, without the right procedures. And we're talking about an electrostatic hospital-grade disinfectant spray, as well as a disinfectant that we spray manually on hard surfaces and wipe off by hand. And we use HEPA filter vacuum cleaners on floors.
Yes.
So basically, this electrostatic spray gets into every nook, every cranny. Basically, you're fogging the room and you're fogging the buses, and it goes into places that a manual operation couldn't reach. Is that correct?
That's entirely correct, yes. Yes. Sorry, I'm just looking for a new question along this list. Is your staff being properly trained in COVID?
Yes. We have established protocols that we all follow. It's important that we follow every protocol consistently. And, we constantly train each other in safe practices that we've all developed in terms of how we behave, when we put our mask on, how we take our mask off, making sure we clean our hands before we reach up to pull our mask off that touches our face, where we put our mask, how often we exchange our mask or, until it needs to be cleaned again or utilize a new mask. Those are the important features of hand washing, I can't say that enough, hand washing, and not touching our faces or eyes our nose. The new norm, as we've been existing here and at our schools with the administrators who have been in the buildings, you just walk around now and everybody was wearing a mask. You see their eyes. It's the new norm that we've established. And I feel very confident that staff who have not come into our buildings yet will integrate very quickly, and I know our students will too.
How many masks per month will staff receive, and will students be provided PPE, or will they purchase their own?
We're asking students to come to school with a clean, serviceable mask. For students who are on our free and reduced lunch program, we will provide masks for those students. We will have masks for students who, for whatever reason, do not have a serviceable mask for the day, or lose the mask, or misplace it, or damage it. So we've got a contingency there. The staff has all been issued reusable masks, and they're responsible for their care as part of their uniform here at East Brunswick. Every staff member has the option to choose their own option, whether they use our mask or they use a disposable product that they buy themselves if they feel more comfortable with that. In my case, I use both. I use both the fabric mask, and I use you see it commonly, the blue disposable mask. I just find that in long periods of time for me, this mask tends to be more comfortable, especially when I'm talking. And so it's a personal choice, but mask will be required.
With 4 high school cohorts, does that mean that a test on a unit would only be given to the in-class cohort? How would that stop cheating?
No, that doesn't mean that. Teachers will use their discretion to assess student content knowledge. So if they have different versions of a test, if we're having the lockdown browser and the Canvas learning management system, if the students are taking an assessment in the afternoon session all together as a class group, if there's one question that's not Googleable being provided to students, our teachers are skilled and equipped to assess student content knowledge in a variety of ways.
Dr. Bully, could you take just a minute, and for the members of our community who may be relatively new or don't have students who've reached, the 8th, 9th grade level at Churchill yet, can you talk about the Canvas learning management system that you implemented at the high school last year and was also implemented at Churchill last year, but now with devices combined with the Canvas learning management system, how that brought features to the district that we previously didn't have?
So in grades 8 through 12, all students are receiving a Lenovo laptop device and will have access to their teacher's Canvas learning management system page. That brings consistency to the department, and for the students' school day, the students can log in and engage with their teachers. They can have remedial tutorial videos on the page. They can have a chat with their teacher, and there's a multitude of opportunities for everything to be all in one place for a one-stop shop for the students.
Right, so as you know, for anybody who has seen it, I'm sure a lot of parents listening have children either at Churchill or the high school, that this Canvas management learning system, after a lot of thought and after a lot of deliberation and support by the Board of Education, it creates a platform that you can create the virtual classroom well before the pandemic struck us. And it also is a platform used by many colleges and universities. Rutgers University, in fact, uses Canvas. So the integration for our students as they leave East Brunswick into the hybrid learning experience they probably will encounter at any college or university they may attend in the future, it provides that seamless transition for them, and it gives them that experience here at the high school level for that experience, right?
That's right, and those students also will be engaging with their teacher through Google Teams.
Thanks.
I mean Microsoft Teams, sorry.
Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Canvas Learning Management System.
Whole new world.
Okay. How will bathroom safety be addressed?
Students will be staggered into bathrooms so that they don't, they're not violating social distancing. So they'll be monitoring of students going to bathrooms. Bathrooms will be cleaned routinely. And so just will address proper protocols for moving from the classroom to the bathroom and staging outside of the bathroom in the hallway, social distancing. We will have markers and guidance in our hallways of our schools. Mr. Giuliano, you've worked hard to establish routing in corridors so that students stay to one side or the other. And then spacing guidance, might want to elaborate on that.
Sure. So by the time school opens, at the exterior of the buildings will be marked for social distancing purposes with a pair of footprints periodically spaced around the building to various entrances to the facilities. The interior of the buildings will all be marked. Every corridor will be divided in half with two-way arrows providing guidance as to which side of the corridor to use for passage, and also be marked along the floor with, again, footstep decals placed, showing what the social distancing requirements are. So there'll be, I think, plenty of guidance provided for students and for the staff. Okay. Why are the schools opening if the municipal building is still closed to the public?
I really can't answer that. I don't know why municipal building is closed to the public for reasons that I don't have access to tonight. We can find out. But I believe, as I've said before, we have created a plan and environment that we are prepared to reintroduce our staff and a portion of our student population, for those parents that have chosen to do so, to reenter school safely and be part of a cohort that has a face-to-face interaction with their teachers.
This next is a statement. I'll put it in the form of a question. I don't mind the schedule, but why can't all schools end at 1:15?
Part of that is transportation. That's the big component. In staging our buses, which are accommodations. Mr. Giuliano is also in charge of this area, so I'm going to ask him to elaborate. We use a blend of contracted buses and our own bus fleet, and our bus drivers, our East Brunswick bus drivers do a phenomenal job. And but they need time to run their routes and to get back to school to pick up new tiers of children. So that's the timing factor.
Yeah, and the simple answer in the best of times is that there just aren't enough buses to be able to run all of the routes in one tier. It just is not possible.
Right.
Even if we had the resources, the financial resources to operate in that way, there aren't enough buses around to be able to support that. We run a 3-tier system, and that means that the high school and the junior high school are on one schedule, and so the buses complete those rounds and then move immediately onto the middle school and do the pickups for the middle school. And then once the middle school is completed, then they move on to the 8 elementary schools. And that's how we are able to maximize the efficiency and deal with the limitations on bus availability. And that schedule is then reversed or repeated in the afternoon. So there's no way that we would be able to have a singular schedule for the entire district. It just could not be accommodated from a transportation standpoint.
Thank you. Can we talk for a second about what PE would look like for our students?
Yes, our PE teachers are prepared to provide both synchronous and asynchronous opportunities to connect with students. So for our elementary students, there will be videos in the afternoon teaching them a particular skill or strategy, and then the days that the students come into school, they would during their PE class, be able to demonstrate that and implement that skill and strategy in the classroom. For our all virtual students, there will be the lessons provided via video, and there will be opportunities to connect with the PE teacher as well. And in our secondary schools, that is a period during the student schedule, and those classes will be conducted live for the students who are there in the classroom, and asynchronously for the students who are at home.
Yes, if I could just add to that, Dr. Bowley, so the parents are aware, so if your student is at home, they will be able to do the activities, the lessons that Dr. Bowley mentioned, really just describe the different activities the students will be able to do. So they will get a chance to get that exercise in and get a chance to work on those skills.
We've got some late questions coming in, people that are not, have not been on previously and are just coming on late, and maybe repeating some questions that were already asked and answered. So I think it bears repeating that the video for this town hall will be posted on the district website. And questions will also, and the respective answers, will be added to the district's FAQ, which is accessed from the district's website. So for those folks that are putting up questions that are repeats, please refer to those resources so we can continue with the additional questions.
Okay.
Can a Mac be used as a learning device?
Yeah, absolutely. Macs are fully capable. If it's a Mac that has a really old operating system, you just need to make sure that the version of Safari that you're using is up to date. If you have any problems with something not working right, just email parentsupport@ebnet.org, and we will be happy to navigate you through that.
Good, thank you. While Mr. Julian is looking at other questions, what about, can we restate what band and chorus will look like?
Certainly. So in our band and chorus classes, the students will be socially distanced. They will also be wearing masks. Our choir students will be singing with masks. Our band students will be wearing a mask that has a hole cut in for the mouthpiece, and that will be kept in their instrument case. And while they are traveling around the building, they will be wearing a regular mask, and additionally, the bells of the instruments will be masked with material covering that will be provided for the students.
And as per guidance been issued or has been issued, opportunities where students can, especially in band, can perform outside, those opportunities will be capitalized on, because that's the safest environment, is to be outside.
Yes.
And that'll be weather permitting.
Same for our PE classes.
When will staff be receiving professional development?
They've been receiving professional development throughout the school year. In the summer, over the summer, we've had participants in the professional development this summer. And Dr. Bully, you've set up professional development to really occur at the beginning of the school year. We repurposed 1 year in the calendar, or 1 day in the calendar this school year to add another PE, or no, I'm sorry, another PD day. Can you explain, throughout the year, PD is occurring throughout the year, just not the beginning of the school year?
That's correct. It's an ongoing process. Learning never ends for our staff and our students. Throughout our spring semester, we had professional development opportunities for all staff. Our summer continued with those opportunities, and we will have 3 full days of professional development available for staff prior to school starting, as well as ongoing in the afternoons for the first few weeks of school and ongoing throughout the year.
Dr. Bully, if you would, for the community, can you just explain, how many times our talented professional staff deliver PD for their peers versus us using outside resources?
I don't have a percentage, but I would say the most of our professional development is teacher to teacher.
Right. And they do a very nice job of it, too.
Yes, they do.
Since only 52% are attending, and actually, that percentage is reversed, it's 48%
Are
so far
attending.
will be in school in the hybrid model. 52% are full remote. So I'll modify the question. Since only 48% are attending, is there any hope that secondary school attendance could be more frequent than 2 days every 8 days?
There is hope, and we are deliberately, and I'm recommending to the board that we maintain the 25% of our enrolled capacity as the first cohort. As I explained earlier in the, if you didn't get a chance to tune in earlier, with the 48%, we realized that less than half of the students that we expected to come in the 25% cohorts will actually physically be at school. This will give us the additional distancing that we need. We can build capacity, but I want the community to understand, we have built our system to be able to scale it up when it's safe to do so. So our elementary schools are currently designed at 50% of the enrolled capacity, and we know we're not going to have 50% in there because of the selections parents have made. And the same for our secondary schools. But our next modification will be to move our secondary schools. That involves Hammersholt, Churchill, and the high school from a 25% model to a 50% model, aligned both with the elementary schools and the secondary schools. And then as the science changes again, as we are allowed to do that, the next change would be from 50% to 100% capacity of all of our buildings. So those are kind of the benchmarks that we're looking in our plan for safe return of full capacity to our buildings.
If a child's assigned device is damaged, how will a replacement be arranged?
Mr. Electronica, they contact you, right?
They would contact parent support. We would schedule an appointment for them to come in. Depending on the nature of the damage, if it's something that we could fix easily, we would do it on the spot. If it's a longer repair, we would provide a temporary device, and we would just swap it out for you.
Even during the end of last school year, Mr. Electronica and his team set up shop at Chittick Elementary School and had set up days for parents who had technological issues or needed replacement devices. And they did a really nice job of making sure that our community was serviced timely and everybody had an operating device. So thank you for doing that.
Will there be plexiglass in classrooms between students at individual desks?
No, there will not. We're maintaining social distancing with mask. I know you may have seen in a variety of news articles, especially in China, use of plexiglass, but you'll also notice those students are closely grouped together. The reason for our model is to maintain, as mandated by the state guidelines in the road back document, that we maintain 6 foot of distancing with mask wearing in our school environment. So plexiglass is not necessary for our students. We will be using plexiglass for high volume walk-up areas that you might see in school offices or where we can't maintain distancing between individual workstations for some of our support staff, but we will not be using plexiglass dividers for students.
Will teachers be regularly tested for COVID-19?
We will not test teachers for COVID. We will not require they be tested routinely. If anybody suspects they've been in contact with somebody who's positive COVID or is symptomatic, they will be tested with their own family physician, who will then guide the recommendation for their return. They will be out for the minimum of, if they are being tested, they will be out for a minimum of until a negative test returns. And if a positive test returns, then they would be out in a quarantine situation for a minimum of 10 days and possibly up to 14 days at the discretion of their physician. CDC guidelines actually changed about 2 or 2.5 weeks ago from recommended 14 days to 10 days based on certain criteria. But different physicians will determine that length of time. And we would also identify close contacts. And close contact, as I said earlier, is anyone who has been within 6 feet of a positive COVID case for 10 minutes or longer.
I'm concerned about the amount of screen time for younger grades. Please clarify the screen time for children in kindergarten through 2nd grade.
Certainly, our youngest learners will not be required to stay on their computer all day. They will log in the morning and connect with their teacher, and at the teacher's discretion, may go off screen to do follow-up and extension activities. They may stay logged into the connection and just go off of the screen and come back onto the screen. We're going to leave the individual teacher discretion available based on the content that the teacher's teaching, the lesson, and the activity that's being provided.
How will computers be distributed and parents contacted at each school?
Well, basically, we are sending out blast emails targeted one school community at a time. And I am also sending out a text message telling you to check your email just in case that email went to your spam folder.
Is it possible to have some teachers dedicated only to virtual teaching and some teachers focus on in-class students only?
Dr. Bowley, you want to?
We are exploring an opportunity with our staffing to look at that model for our elementary students.
Will midterms and finals still take place for high schoolers?
That has not been determined at this time.
What is the protocol to be followed if a student in virtual learning has an interruption of internet service?
They would contact the building principal right away and their teacher to notify them so we could begin to investigate if that was a singular problem or if they, it was a maybe a classroom problem or if somebody lives in a certain part of the community that may have been affected. So it might be individual technology, it might be serviceability based on service providers for internet. So, each individual situation is unique. So I urge you to contact your, at least your classroom teacher and your building principal to let them know so we can begin to investigate what may have happened.
What are the school hours under this program?
They are your school hours on our website. You look at each school's single session day hours, and those are the hours we are going to follow for each individual school, the published arrival and dismissal times.
How many days will the students go to school?
It depends on the cohort. The elementary students will be 2 days in and 2 days out. The secondary schools will be divided into 4 cohorts, and they will be in for 2 days and out for 6 days. And it will roll 2 days in, 6 days out. The next cohort will come in after the first cohort leaves after their 2 days. They'll be 2 days in and 6 days out, and so forth. So as we begin, and I know questions have come up tonight, as we begin to think about or increasing our capacity from 25 to 50% at secondary schools, the objective would be to get our students into school 4 of those 8 days instead of 2 of those 8 days, so we would double the amount of time in school in the hybrid capacity. One clarification I wanted to make on the school day is that for the hybrid students that are in school are following the single session day, but the day is the full day of our school day, and students, after having lunch and having time to be transported, whether it's home or where they are going to be for the afternoon, will have the opportunity to log back in to engage with their teacher with additional lessons or supports.
What safeguards are in place to protect students from excessive policing and discipline related to mask and distancing?
I'm not if the question is related to our SSOs, we all understand what this new environment looks like and the actual integration into this new environment wearing masks. Not every student will be compliant as we return 100% of the time, and we anticipate that. So we will offer gentle reminders and encouragement. We are not looking for enforcement measures unless we have a student who is non-compliant, and we can't afford to infect or expose the rest of the school community or the potential for that. So if a student is non-compliant, the parents or guardians of that student will be contacted, and the student will be removed from the hybrid model if they're in that, and will be moved to the remote model.
In the event of a delayed opening or weather day closing, will school actually be closed or will it be held remotely?
That is a question we haven't gotten an answer to, because we have the capability to operate in a remote environment, and we have learned through the closure from March until June that we effectively use technology to continue our school day, to engage with students, connect with families. And I'm going to be completely honest, we understood that there were areas we need to improve upon. We thought we had some really good plans, and I was really proud of the way the staff and the community responded. Our teachers engaged in ways that we had not seen before. They spent countless hours preparing lessons for students and collaborating with each other and coming up with innovative practices to reach students. Understandably, not everyone is happy, but I heard from a variety of parents that are happy. But we continue to improve upon what we do. And my hope is that we would be able to create a platform that on a snow day, we could have a remote alternate to the snow day and get credit for that day. At this moment, if we had a snow day, if we had a state of emergency declared by the governor and we could not hold school, we would not get credit for the day based on the current guidance from the Department of Education. That doesn't mean we are not advocating to use this technology to leverage that after the recovery of the pandemic to be able to have education occur continuously even during a school closure.
Okay, just doing a time check, we have a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
So the next question, how will absences be reported for online students?
The teacher will take attendance at the beginning of the period and mark which students are engaged in the class period.
And will the district be releasing the data regarding parent selections of virtual versus hybrid by school and grade?
I don't have plans to do that right now. I'll talk to the board about that. But I assure you that the data that we have is factual. 52% have, on average, 52% have chosen the remote-only option, and about 48% right now have chosen the hybrid model. That is not to say, and I wanted to reaffirm this, the community will have opportunities, parents will have the opportunity to select a different learning model prior to the beginning of the first marking period. And we will communicate the deadlines for doing that throughout the first marking period. And if parents need to contact us for any other reason, situations that occur that require our attention, do not hesitate to call my office. We will be happy to assist you and navigate you through a solution that meets the needs of both you and your children.
We'll take one more question. When do you see school returning to normal?
Wow. I guess we all have to define what normal is. And I think we can all agree that, given what we've been through since March 18th, that the normal we knew before is not the normal we're going to experience for maybe the rest of some of our lives. So do I hope that we will return to 100% capacity for our schools? Absolutely. There are a lot of factors involved in that. There is the science of a vaccine, there's the distribution of a vaccine, the effectiveness of a vaccine, the mutation of the virus, just our own personal practices, our behaviors. And we have proven in Middlesex County, and specifically in East Brunswick Township, that we are among the safest townships in Middlesex County by data that is produced for infection rates and rates of transmission and hospitalizations. But that comes with standardized practices, continuous care, and as I've told, and we talk among ourselves, our own self-care is important, and that is something I cannot emphasize enough for families and for our students, that your practices are your practices, and the attention to detail is so important. Not touching your face, not touching your nose, not touching your eyes, washing your hands frequently. You know, I think wearing a mask has taught us all how often our hands go places that we never thought about before, or how, you know, if we wash our hands, how infrequently we washed our hands before. So I think a combination of practices, I think a combination of science, and obviously we, as many people may not know, we are following the executive orders of the governor of New Jersey. Governor Murphy has issued multiple and sequential executive orders that have dictated how we recover from this. And as you watch the news, sometimes he will issue an executive order allowing certain things, and then they begin to phase things back. The value of our plan is we can adjust up in greater capacity, but we also have the ability to shift if we need to do that, if the circumstances change that require us to do that. This is going to be an involvement. It's an involvement of the entire community. And I have seen East Brunswick do it, and I'm confident that this community is ready and committed to assist us in the safe return of our students, those that want to be here, to school, and to engage once again with their teachers. So I appreciate the efforts of everyone. I know there are a lot of people that are not happy about the return to school, and some are not happy that we're not returning to school full-time. Not one of our solutions meets the needs of 100% of the population, but I believe our plan is a safe plan that meets the needs of most of the constituents in East Brunswick.
That's it. We're past the 8 o'clock hour.
Thank
We
you
were
all
limited.
for joining in. Thank you all for giving us your questions. As stated before, we're going to take many of the questions that we did not get to, different themes. We're going to put those in our FAQ, our frequently asked questions, on the website. Please refer to the website. It is a constant source of information for you. Information that Mr. Electronica gave you tonight about where to contact if you have a device failure or break, if you have questions about clubs and activities, questions about academics or about transportation or cleaning. We've answered a lot of those, but look at the FAQs. A lot of those questions have been asked and answered, and so hopefully if we haven't asked or if we haven't answered something that has been generated during this town hall forum that you think of later, just send an email to questions@ebnet.org, and we'll be happy to take a look at it. Thank you all, and have a good night.
Good night.
Right.